Okay, here we go again for the third stream of the day. What we're going to be doing now is learning basic programming. The very first thing I need to check is that all my students are actually here and that they understand that they have signed up for a class in English. Okay, so we need two things. We need people to go on the voice channel. So if you're in this class, please go on the voice channel that I just linked on Discord. You're just going to be there amongst yourselves, and please type something in the Twitch chat, like hello, I am here, ready for class, whatever. But type something in Twitch. Okay, I have 5 students. Supposed to have like 20. Okay, 1 person's on Twitch, 6 on Discord. Here we go. Hearing thunder. I hope the lights still go out. Okay, 2 people are on Twitch. Three people. One of them is a repeat runner from last year. I think I need to link the Twitch again. I'm getting the impression not everybody's there. Eight people here, 3 people on Twitch. Okay, we're going to start with some very basic, simple things. 2 things. I need you guys to download the textbook. I am going to pass the link on Twitch as well. Very important, you need to go download the textbook. You need to save the PDF file. Very, very important. You also need to go download the reference card. I put it on Discord. It's a thing that looks like this. We're going to be using this a lot. It's like a summary of syntax and library functions we're going to be requiring. It's very important. Everyone has this. Very important. I keep it on my desktop so I can easily open it. You can either print it or keep it on your desktop as well. Everybody needs it. Absolutely everybody. I'm going to make a little poll on Discord. If you have already downloaded both the textbook and the reference card, click on the green symbol. If you cannot find either one of them, click on the question and please write what's the one you can't find. If you need more time, click on the confused face. If you just showed up and you don't know what's going on, click on the sleeping face, please. The textbook also exists translated to Spanish. We can see if we can find it. Okay, these people in Argentina seem to have the book in Spanish, so let's copy it here and here. I would read it in English. I read it in English when I studied this ages ago. English is not my native language. But if you think you might be confused, please also download the version in Spanish, just in case. It's very important for you to have this material available. We're going to be reading the chapters one by one, and many of our exercises are going to be related to things that the chapters are covering. So this is very, very important. Also, it said in CIASE when you guys signed up that this group was in English. I understand some people don't actually read anything. They just click on things, and they're now very worried because they had no idea this class was going to be in English. If you know a little bit of English, you should be fine. Like, you seriously, you should be fine. We have the book in Spanish. You can type questions on Discord in Spanish. You should be okay. But I have to give the class in English because since it says in CIASE that this class is in English, I cannot just give it in Spanish, even if you all agree, because it's already been registered as a group in English. So we have to respect that. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be learning about 4 different topics. First, fundamentals of programming, then stuff that has to do with data structures, stuff that has to do with modularity, and then stuff that has to do with data storage. The criteria on which you're going to be graded is all here on the website. I've already put the website link on Discord, but I will repeat it in both Discord and Twitch just in case. Everybody needs to know these things. We're going to have 2 exams. We're going to have a midterm, it's worth 20 points, and a final exam that's worth 20 points. We are going to have 4 fundamental activities that actually are divided into 7 individual assignments. They give you a 45 points in total. The first assignment, it's going to be the A1. We're going to have 3 little questions online and a tiny little programming assignment. Then the A2, it's the combination of E2 and E3. Both of them will have 3 little exercises online and a tiny programming assignment. Then the A4 will happen after the midterm exam. We're going to have, again, 3 little questions online and slightly larger programming assignments. And then the same thing repeats with E6 and E7. They will form the A5, 3 questions online, programming, 3 questions online, programming. After we're done with those exercises, we're going to be doing the final project and presenting the final exam. All of the code you will be giving me, you will be uploading it to a public repository. Every single one of you. Nobody will put anything on Teams. Nobody will put anything on Discord in terms of files of code. Everything will go to a public repository. I would recommend you use a Github repository. I will copy this for you as well. This is free. You don't have to pay anything. You're simply going to go there. You're going to create an account. You are going to create a repository that's called something like programming, C language, programming course. And then once you've created it, you will put the URL of your repository here on the channel. I will put mine so you guys can see what it looks like. So when you're looking at your own repository, you will copy the link and you will paste it on the channel. Everybody will have to do this at some point within the next 3 weeks because it has to be done before you turn in your first homework. This is very important. We have a help channel here on Discord for GitHub. If you go to that channel, you can ask your questions there on anything related to how to use GitHub. So that's a special place where you can get help on GitHub. We're not going to be worrying about it today. We have other things to worry about today. Next week, we're going to take a little bit of time on learning how to use GitHub, but we're going to leave it to next week so that this week everybody can create their account, create a repository, but you don't really have to put anything there yet. Lovely, there's one. So everybody's going to be doing this. Another thing I need you guys to do is on Discord, I need you to type exclamation ROL. it will assign you the role for the programming class. So whenever I send a notification to the programming students, your Discord will let you know that there's a notification for you. So if you haven't done it yet, please do it. Exclamation ROL, it's role in Spanish. And after you've done it, just say something. Hola, hello, whatever. If your username shows up in white, it means you haven't done the role thing. If your username shows up in yellow, it means you have done the role thing. You only need to do the role thing once. If you're showing up in yellow, you're already good. Another thing I need you guys to do on Discord is I need you to tell the bot your student number. The bot is going to be taking attendance. Anytime you write anything on the programming channel on Discord, the bot will know that you were present. So it's this math bot here, where it says math bot. You will right click on the math bot and you will click message. It will send you to direct messages with the math bot. You will type there the 7 digits of your student ID number. You will click enter and the bot will thank you for having told it your student ID number. I need you to do this because when you post your repository on Discord, I can just see your Discord username, but I need to know the student number that corresponds to it. So you will tell that to the bot. People who have more roles are people who are actually not signed up for this class, or they've been signed up for another class, or they're taking 2 different classes at the same time. Like, for example, I have tons of roles. And Yasso here, he's actually not a student of this class, so don't worry about his roles. Role Gamer here, he took the class last semester, so he's not going to show up in yellow either. But anybody who's signed up for this class should have a yellow username, unless they've been signed up for something else previously. But nobody should have a white username. White username means that you haven't done the role thing. And you need to send the student ID before you put your repository. I will be making a list on the website of the repositories of the people who are actually signed up for the class, people who need to be graded. And then when we're grading, we're going to visit all those repositories, look at everybody's code. We're not going to be grading the codes of people who are not signed up, because we could have 1,000 people who are not signed up and only 20 who are. So we are only going to be grading the people who actually signed up for the class, but everybody is welcome to do all the exercises. Okay, so that's the part about you needing to have a repository. When you create your repository, please pay attention that it needs to be a public one. It cannot be a private one. If it's a private one, neither me nor anybody else will be able to see it. It's super important that you will never ever copy anybody else's code, not even a little bit. I don't care why you did it. You're simply not going to do it. Everybody will always write their own code. And if you had to look at somebody else's code as an example, you will clearly write it in the code as a comment. What code were you looking at and why did you have to look at it? I really need to know what parts are your own code and which parts come from somewhere else. If 2 or more students mysteriously turn in the same code or very similar, both will be in trouble, both will fail. Let's see if we've understood this. I can't type. Remember, if you have any questions, you need to click on the red question mark and then you can type your question on Discord. It's okay to type in Spanish. If you need me to answer in Spanish, I can answer in Spanish, and you don't have to do this now. You can create the account later. You can go to the GitHub channel to ask for help. Just please try to do it before next week's class so that next week we can actually start working with the repositories. If you have now noticed that you don't actually understand anything and you really need to take this class in Spanish, tú necesitas contactar al departamento escolar. Yo no puedo realizar esos cambios. Tú necesitas contactar a escolar, decir que tú por accidente inscribiste un grupo en inglés y tú no entiendes y tú necesitas otro grupo. Tú necesitas hacer ese cambio para que te den de baja de mi grupo y te den de alta en otro grupo cuanto antes. No lo postergues. Si tú intentas aguantar hasta medio curso y no entiendes, simplemente vas a reprobar y es mala idea. Okay, so here on the website, we have a tiny little calendar on what's going to be happening on different dates. Today is the 5th of August, which is our first class. I'm copying this to Discord, and I'm also going to pin it, so it's going to be easy to find later on. So today we're simply going to do a tiny little bit of an introduction. Next week, we're going to worry about what's a compiler and what's GitHub. And then we're going to start with basic concepts. On the 26th of August, we're going to be covering the first chapter of the textbook. And then every week, it's going to be a different chapter. On 23rd of September, it's not going to be a Thursday. We're going to have our midterm exam. I believe it's a Wednesday. Then we do the other 4 chapters of the book. Then everybody picks topics for their project. Everybody presents a partial progress of the project. Then we actually grade the projects. Then we're going to have a final exam. It's not going to be a Thursday either. I believe it's going to be a Tuesday. And then we're going to have the second opportunity exam for the people who didn't pass. And it's not going to be a Thursday either. I believe it's a Monday. I don't get to pick the exam dates. The university picks all these things. If you don't know how to check the dates for the exams, here in the category UNL, you could go to a channel FIME. The channel FIME here contains the calendars for when the exams, midterm, regular, and second opportunity are. And here it says these things. Actually, it says that the Thursday classes have a 22nd. Here it says 23rd. Let me fix it. 22nd of September. The final exam is 23rd of November, and the second opportunity is 6th of December. So I don't get to choose these things. The School of Engineering chooses them for me. So if this is inconvenient for you because of your work, you need to tell your boss beforehand that you're going to have an exam. There will not be any other date or time for presenting the exams. It has to be the date scheduled by the university. It's going to be at the class hour. So everything is always going to happen at 2:30 p.m., never at any other time. Let's see if anyone has questions about this. Green check mark if you understand what's going to be happening every week and you know where to check this information. Red question mark if you have any doubts about this. Confused face if you need more time to figure out what's going on. I'm just reading you guys the course website, so everything's there for you to check whenever you need to see it. I'm also going to have a YouTube playlist for you. It already contains the classes from last semester. Last semester was a bit of a cluster because we had less weeks. The semester is supposed to be 16 weeks, but with all this COVID contingency they actually reduced the duration of the last 2 semesters. So we didn't have time to do all the introduction that we're going to be doing this time. So it's a little bit rushed, and we're going to be going slower this semester. That's actually the correct length. This is the book we're using. This is the link to my GitHub. This is the link to my Twitch, where is the class that you're watching right now. And this is a link to the reference card that I said everybody needed to have. So I'm hoping we're fine with that. And we're going to go to a thingy online that will allow us to start figuring out how do we program in the C language. So everybody go to this site, please. Even if you have something installed on your computer to compile C, we're today all going to be using this website so that everybody is on the same page and everybody is doing the same exact thing. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit on mine so it's easier to read. And I'm going to be taking you guys screenshots so you don't have to try to copy from what I'm doing here. Let me push this thing to the side. Okay, so this is a program. All the stuff in the beginning here, this is a comment. I could make it much smaller. Like this. That's a comment. It doesn't do anything. It's just an explanation. I can also do end of line comments like this. To explain, and what we're doing here is including a library for input and output. On our reference card, we're going to see this library. It's here on the second page in a corner. All the explanation of the basic stuff we need from this library. So it's all in the reference card. So whenever you see a library and you're like, oh my God, what's this? You're going to go to your reference card and you're going to look at the documentation provided for that library. For this course, the information on the reference card should be more than adequate for anything you need. Please don't ever use any libraries that do not appear on the reference card. If you want to use a library and it's not mentioned in this PDF, you will not use it in my class. You will not use it in any of the homework. You will not use it in the project. I don't care if you saw it somewhere else. You will simply never ever use it for this class if it's not on the reference card. And why? Because I don't want people being confused about stuff that isn't really related to what we're doing. This is a basic course. We're going to cover the basics. If you want to expand further from the basics on your own, please do it after the class and don't put it in the homework. A lot of people will actually be struggling with the content, and we really don't need them to be confused because you decided to use something else that you took from somewhere else. Please don't do it to your classmates. Let's just use only the stuff that's on the reference card. This here is the main routine. So this is where the program begins execution. I personally hate it that this little curly brace is here. I would personally put it up here. It's a personal preference. Also, so leaving empty lines is a personal preference. They don't mean anything in C. I like leaving a line between the includes and the main. I like this line because it gives me a structure, but I don't really like having like extra lines in here. What does this int here mean? Int comes from the word integer. It just means a whole number that doesn't have decimals. So in Spanish, that would be an entero, número entero. Please don't put accented characters on your C code. That's a bad idea. So I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to do this so that I won't get in trouble later on. And printf simply means formatted output. So we're going to be printing something, and that something needs to be in double quotes. I can't type. There's a lot of cats here in my keyboard, so it's sometimes difficult to get some letters to work. So I would like to print alguna cosa with my program. And this is just the return code. If you don't like 0, you can return a 42. It doesn't do really anything for us. In more advanced programming, you're going to be using these as error codes to communicate to the operating system what happened with your program. But in this course, it doesn't matter. Today, we're also not going to worry about what happens here in the command line. We're going to be looking at that possibly next week if we're going fine. And when we have a code here and we would like to use the code, we're going to press play. It's going to say that we have to use choose a language. I every single time forget to do it. And why do we have to choose it? Because there's a ton of languages we could use on this website. You will also always pick the first one, just basic C. So after I pick the language, now it's actually ran my program. I hate it that the Zoom goes weird. Trying to get my code to come back. Come on, stupid website. Okay, there we go. So now I've executed this code here and it printed here alguna cosa. If I wanted to say something else, I modify the code and I press play. Now it says alguna otra cosa. Okay, I'm gonna take a screenshot of this. It's very, very, very important that everybody manages to do what I'm doing here. It doesn't matter if you print something else. It doesn't matter if you're returning a 0, but I need everybody to be able to do this. The stuff you wanted it to print needs to show up here on the bottom part. I'm gonna make a little poll. So we're not actually going to discuss the function of the number. As I mentioned before, you can use it to give error codes to the operating system on whether your program exited normally or abnormally. In this course, it's not going to be used. It's not relevant. And I don't want to go into detail so that people won't be horribly confused. I can give you a reading for it. Well, this tutorial is kind of lame. Let me find a tutorial that isn't lame on the same topic. This might be a better conversation about it. But for this course, you don't have to worry about it. If you want it to return 666, it's going to return 666. I really don't care. It just has to be a whole number because we're saying here that this program will produce a number. It can be a 1, it can be 100, it could even be a -1. It doesn't matter. It has to be a number. But it's for more advanced uses. People do stuff with that number, but not in basic programming. Okay, so 7 people have been able to do this. We're waiting for Abli, Pedro, and somebody else to get to the part where they have something written up and something prints on the parts here. Important recap here, you needed to choose the language, choose C, and click on Run. I'm going to take screenshots of those parts in particular. So you have to select the language. And you have to press Run. If you have any questions, you can type them in any language you would like on Discord. We will all happily help you. I'll try to zoom in a tiny bit again. Most websites are not really good for zooming. Okay, still waiting on one person. We are waiting on Carlos Suarez. When you're done, Carlos, just click again on the confused face to take the confusion off and click on the green thing to mark that you're ready. And for those of you who think this is boring, I fully comprehend you. Some people catch on programming really quickly. And for those people, the best thing you can do is you can start reading chapter 1 of the book, and you can start doing the exercises of chapter 1. And eventually the class is going to catch up and you will be able to start doing more interesting things with me. But it's really important for me to go really slowly in the beginning so that we don't lose anybody. Because as soon as we lose them, they're really difficult to recover. Looks like Carlos is good now. No, Carlos actually decided to go for a sleeping phase. Also remember, the classes are recorded. You will be able to watch them later on Twitch and even later than that on YouTube. So you can always re-watch these as many times as you'd like. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to learn to do basic calculations in C code. So let's make something called variables. I'm actually going to just use 2 spaces. I'm going to say that I would like to have a whole number called a. Then I could say that a takes some value. Let's say a would be worth a. And then let's say I want to look at what the value of a is. So I could say to my program that I want a variable, like a space to store a value. Then I want to assign a value to that variable. And then I would want to print that value. This D here simply means it's going to be an integer. That's all that information is available on your reference card. D and I are for integer. So this way I could make my program print a value. Okay, now we have a problem. I said that I want to print a value and it printed a value. I didn't say what value I wanted to print. And I can't make the Holy Spirit guess I wanted to print A. So I need to tell it what's the value I want to print. I specify I want the variable A to be printed. And now I see 8 as intended. I'm not printing whatever happens to be in the memory anymore. I am printing the variable I wanted. So now if I had multiple variables, let's say that I have A and B. A has value 8, B has value 13. Now I can print my A. Or if I want to print my B, I change the code, I run it again, and I can print my B. So these are variables. They're places to put values, and I can look at the values there by printing them. Another thing I could do is I could press debug, and when I'm debugging things, I would be able to start looking at the variable values here. I could start executing and I could be looking at them, but I haven't set any breakpoints. How do I check breakpoints on this thing? Okay, there's a breakpoint. So let's start over again. Now the program stopped on line 9 because I set a breakpoint there. And on line 9, variable A has value 8 and variable B has value 13. It hasn't printed anything yet because I stopped on that line. If I continue, it actually does that line and it prints the 13. So I can put these little red dots here to pause the program at a given time to be able to look at the values of the variables at that time. I will restart again to be able to take a screenshot of what it looks like when I have a breakpoint set It's the red dot, and when I can actually look at the values of the code in that breakpoint. This is not something you need to mandatorily do, but this is very helpful when you're not certain what values are where and your program isn't doing what you want it to do. You can use the debug option to inspect the values of the variables to know what's going on in your program. Okay, I'm going to stop debugging and running it normally again. Another poll. Let's see if I can get rid of my point. Okay, I just clicked on it again and it went away. So we seem to be okay. So I can just assign values. Now I could do math. I could decide that I want a variable C and I want it to be B minus A. I need to declare it. So these are declarations. This means these variables will exist. If I don't declare C and I try to run this, I am going to get an error that C is undeclared. But if I add it here that there is going to be a C, then my program works wonderfully. Now I would probably want to look at what's the value of C, that's B minus A. B minus A is 5, 13 minus A is 5. I could also type the B minus A straight up here, but it makes a little bit of a cleaner code, easier to understand if I put it to a different variable and then I print the variable. /d percentage %d, it means I am printing a whole number. It's on the reference card, the one I told you everybody needs to have. Here on the second page, first column, the explanation of the stdio library, which is the one that we're using. It says here that when we're formatting input-output, D and I refer to integers. Whereas, for example, C's would be characters, O's would be octal numbers. We don't know what those are yet. We're not going to lose sleep over them. We're just going to be using the D's. I should be able to put an I there, and the same exact thing should be happening because D and I should mean the same thing. I is a little easier to remember because it's I like integer, but most old school programmers are going to use a D because that's what we learned in the 90s to put there. And this is why you need the reference card. Remembering all these things is going to take years. But if you have the reference card, you can always take a look. Like, what does this mean again? What's this word again? How am I supposed to do this again? When you have the reference card at hand, it's going to explain everything. Also, if you read the first chapter of the book, it's also going to explain everything. It's a really good book. The day I bought the book, I actually sat on my bed and I read the whole thing. Of course, I couldn't master the whole thing, but it's a short book and it gave me like a good idea of what's coming. So then when I was taking the course, week by week, the exercises, I already knew what kind of stuff comes in the book because I'd already looked at all of it. The best way to read that book is while you have something like this online GDB open, so that you can actually be interacting with the examples while you're reading them. But we don't have to do that yet. We have a couple of weeks to take it easy. So now we could start experimenting with things. What I'm doing here is subtracting. So I'm just typing something like A minus B. I would recommend you guys to try other kinds of arithmetics. There should be multiplications. You should be able to add. You should check what happens when you divide, and you should find out what the percentage sign does. The book, Luis, I've already linked it in Spanish and in English here on the channel, the PDF. The name of the book is on Discord. Let me go find it again. Let me find where I put the book in Spanish. Y la tarjeta de referencia. ¿Dónde la puse? Here. So all those 3 PDF files, please save them on your computer. You need them. You need them the whole semester. So let's experiment with all this arithmetic. Let's try to figure out what's going to happen, especially with the division, and what's going to happen with the percent sign. I would like to give you guys a little bit of time to do this. And then I would like you to type on Discord, what do you think the percent sign is doing? And also, what do you think happens when you're dividing? Those are the only things that don't work exactly as intuition would dictate. Because now I'm getting stuff like 13 divided by 5. It's giving me, no, 13 divided by 8. It's giving me a 1. And when I did 13 divided percent, it's actually not going to be anything to do with percentages, with 8, it gave me a 5. And I would recommend you guys keep changing these numbers. Like, for example, I put here an 18 and a 4, and I run it again, and then I observe what's going on. 4 divided by 18 was a 0. So what would be 8 divided by 2? That would be a, no, 2 divided by 8, actually. That's what I did, and that's 0, 2. So a 2 as a divisor and 8 being divided gives me exactly 4. Then if I divide 9 by 2, I am also going to get 4. If I do 9% sign 2, I am going to get a 1. So I want you guys to experiment a tiny little while, form a hypothesis on your head, what on earth is going on, and then type on Discord in Spanish or in English your best guess, what's going on with the division symbol, what's going on with the percent symbol. Please don't Google it, just test it and try to reason it. Subtraction, multiplication, and sum are going to work exactly as you think they do, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to experiment a lot with those. But the division symbol and the percent symbol, they're doing something that's not immediately obvious to everybody. As soon as you have an idea, type it so we can discuss the ideas. Test with different values for A and B until you can kind of like properly examine if your hypothesis actually seems to hold up as a proper theory of what's going on. Mike and Gerardo are very keen on this. Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to be, Mike. It's how many times does the divisor fit into the other number. So if we type something like A division bar B, it's going to be how many times does B fit into A. It's not going to be a regular division. There's never going to be decimals. So 5 divided by 2, it's not going to be 2.5. It's going to be 2, because 2 fits twice in a 5. That's called integer division, división entera. It's very important to remember this. It's always going to be a whole number. There's never going to be decimals. Don't worry if your internet goes. It's the worst thing here is that if my internet goes, then I can't actually stream, but you can just watch whenever you want to. And if all this is really trivial to you, if you already know how integer divisions work, you can just skip the rest, because I'm just trying to make sure everybody understands how this goes. So what does the percent sign do? It's really related into this division thingy, and it's a very relevant thing in programming. I'm going to pin how this division works so that we never forget it. What's the other one do? So 8 fits into 13 one time. If you take that 1 8 away from the 13, what do you get? What are the leftovers? Anybody? Spanish is fine if you don't know what it's called in English. I'm going to move this one guy. Pedro is by himself on a different channel. Pedro, I have moved you to where everybody else is because you're by yourself. A couple of people are working on what the percent sign might mean. Furious typing. No, it will have nothing to do with percentages at all. I promise you, it's not related to percentages at all. Let's look at some examples. So if I put a 12 here and a 5 here, let's turn this around. Let's put A modulus B. So if I have a 12, then the percent sign and a 5. Yeah, and I also said modulus. So if I divide 12 by 5, I'm going to get a 2, right? Then 2 times that 5 is going to be a 10. Whereas if I take that 10 away from the 12, I'm going to have a 2. It's the leftover, it's the residue, residuo de la división in Spanish. It's what you couldn't divide. So whatever two numbers I put here, like 223 and 15, I could look at what's their residue, and I could look at how many times the number fits. So let's make a D here. So let's put C is A modulus B, and D is A divided by B. So now A should be the number that I obtain by multiplying B B times, and I add C to it. That should give me A. So let's try to see if this is correct. By printing both of the values. On one side, printing B times D plus C, and on the other hand, printing A. What did I break now? A, B, C, D. A is 123. A modulus B is my C. A divided by B is my D. Then I want B times D plus C to be a variable. Let's put it actually in a variable. Let's call it E. Oh, I think I somehow managed to crash this reload. This is the bad thing about working with something online. It might just suddenly decide not to be working. But I don't want to complicate you guys' life by installing software yet today. I need the library. Those are my integers. Then I wanted A to be 123. I wanted B to be 15. Then I wanted C to be A residue B. I wanted D to be A divided division, integer division by B. And then I wanted E to be D times B plus C. Cat here in my keyboard, shift isn't working. Then I wanted to see if I need to put double quotes. I'm really bad at remembering double quotes. And I wanted to print both of those values, E and A. Let's copy this whole thing. If I have to reload again, I can just cut and paste. Okay, now it worked. So if I put here the residue called modulus or just mod, those are the leftovers. And this is the integer division. So better typing. The how many times does it fit? So now if I take how many times does it fit, I put it back that many times, and then I add the leftovers, I recover the original number. Let me move this up high and take a screenshot of what's going on in here. What I want to do now, and that's actually the last thing I want to do because I want you guys to have time to do your stuff. I want to take this code that I have here, I'm going to copy it all, and I want to go to my GitHub repository and put it there. We're also not going to install anything for that on the computer today. We're just going to go to the website. I'm going to go to my C repository. We're going to make another file here. Going to create a new file. It's going to go in a subfolder intro, and I'm going to call it demo.c. And I'm going to put here the code I have written. Then I'm going to explain what this is. Then I will send the new file. So now in my repository, there is now a subfolder intro that contains this code. And if anybody wants to use this code, you could just go to the raw view. You could copy and paste it from here. You could go to online GDB. You could just put my code there and you could run it. Let me copy you guys the location of the file. So if you have any trouble typing what I'm typing, you can just go copy this. It's very important that every single symbol has to be exactly like I have it. These have to be parentheses. This has to be a curly brace. You cannot substitute a symbol with another. You simply cannot, because they mean different things. There has to be a semicolon at the end of each line. These have to be separated by commas. What we could take away are the comments, and we could substitute this I with a D, and we could put whatever number we want here, but we cannot mess with the other stuff. We cannot. I could make some interesting changes. I believe I could do this. Still works. Remember, I can change this. These could be, one of them could be a D or both of them could be Ds. It's okay. The comments don't have to be there. It doesn't matter if the spaces are there. It doesn't matter if I put the C in a variable. I could just leave it. It's still gonna work. But let's say I decide to take away this semicolon here. Nope. Error, expected a semicolon before E because the semicolon here is missing. Or if I decided to take this opening parenthesis away. Nope. I have closed the parenthesis that never opened. I have to put it back. So this is very precise how you write these things. It might work even if I take this away. And it doesn't really care if I took it away. It might be a little bit better if I did it like this. Doesn't really care. There's some changes you can do, but others you simply can't. Let's say I forget to put the F in printf. Not gonna work. It's not called print. There is no such function as print. If you look at your preference card, it says it's printf, and that's very precise. I could maybe type here too that D is A divided by B because A and D have already been defined. So I could do those things. I could declare E and assign it on one single line. That would work as well. If I take away the library, none of this is going to work because printf doesn't exist anymore. I get a warning. It's automatically included it, but it's complaining that it should be there. So let's return it. I could take away the space here. I could maybe even take that away. I think I broke it again. Let me copy paste and put the whole thing again. Take this away, put the stuff I wanted. Yeah. Now, notice it's complaining. It doesn't like it. It's running it, but it doesn't like it. It's going to like it better if I put that there, and it's going to be more correct if I actually return an integer, but it doesn't matter what integer I return. And notice now it said it returned with exit code 1. If I put here 13, it's going to return again with exit code 1. So it doesn't really care about my number. -1, exit code 0. It doesn't really care. So it doesn't matter what number I put here because we're just running this thing on an online thingy. We can make it matter on our computer with more sophisticated software, but for what we're doing in this course, it just simply doesn't matter. It's nicer, of course, if you guys are consistent, that if you use %d for integer variables, put both of them as D. Or if you use I, put both of them as I. It doesn't make any sense to put more complicated numbers than you need to. Ones and zeros are just fine, unless you really want to make a statement. But anytime it gives you an error, look what you did and try to find the mistake. Like if I put a single quote here, it's not going to work. Even if I put both of them as single quotes, it's going to complain. Because single quotes doesn't mean the same thing as double quotes in C. So just anytime you're getting weird errors, first compare what am I doing or what's the book doing to what you're doing. Read the error messages carefully, because if I'm missing a semicolon, it usually says here that it was expecting a comma or a semicolon. It tells you what's wrong. So you don't have to go guessing. The software will tell you what you're missing. So that's the part that I really wanted you guys to see today. I would like you all to take a moment to create your own GitHub accounts. I'll link you again the main site where you need to go to do this. It's free. Don't pay anything to anybody. You click on the new button to make a new repository. I'm going to make one just to show you. This is just a demo and it needs to be public. You need to leave it in public. I cannot grade your work if it's not public. It's really important. The rest of the stuff that comes here, this is entirely optional. You don't have to do any of this if you don't want to. You can click on the learn more to know what it's about, and then you click on the green button. That's how you make a repository. If it says here that the name isn't available, just try another name. And you yourself are going to be the owner because you don't actually belong in any organizations. Try to pick a username that isn't extremely shameful, because you're probably going to want to mention your GitHub username in like job applications further on. So you would want it to be something that identifies you clearly as a responsible adult. But that's our goal today. Everybody makes a repository. In that repository, you can put a tiny little code like this one. You can even copy mine if you want to. Remember, when you copy code, it's really important you mention it. You can add a comment saying that I couldn't think of any other code, so I just copied the professor's code from URL such, so that there won't be any trouble. But we're just trying to make sure everybody knows how to use online GDB, and everybody knows how to create a repository in GitHub. That's what we need for week 1. Do we have any questions? Yes, well, you're not really sharing the account, you're sharing the repository. And remember, you need to send your student ID to the bot, this math bot here, because when the bot knows your student number, then I know it too. And then when you share your repository, I'm going to be able to know what student will get the points for the homework that's in that repository, because the bot knows your student ID. If somebody posts a repository and I don't know their student ID, I'm just going to remind them that they need to give it to the bot. Mess around with the online GDB with little tiny programs like this. Start browsing the book, either in English or in Spanish, and take a look at the reference card. There's going to be a lot of stuff you don't understand in it at this point, but being familiar with it will help you later on. If you have any questions about programming, you can ask on this channel. If there are more advanced questions about programming and not about this course, there's a programming channel for that. There's a GitHub channel if you have questions about GitHub. And if you're struggling with your keyboard because you don't know how to type curly braces or something, we even have a new channel to discuss trouble with keyboards. And then next week, I would hope everybody to be familiar with online GDB, everybody to have their repositories already done, so that we could talk about how to install something that does the same stuff as online GDB, but on your own computer, and how to start uploading files from your computer to GitHub instead of having to copy paste and edit on the browser. And I want to make programs that are a little bit more complicated, variables that aren't all whole numbers, Then we could work with decimal numbers. We could work with maybe letters and possibly even start looking at stuff like conditions and cycles. But let's just go slow so that we don't really lose anybody. And please look at the books, at least the first couple of pages of the first chapter, so that you won't be horribly lost. I'm gonna stop streaming. I'm going to give you guys the URL of the recording on Twitch. I'm going to export it to YouTube, and I will stay staring at this channel until 5 o'clock in case you guys have any trouble, any questions. I'm also going to join the voice channel on Discord if you guys want to ask me anything in English as soon as I am done with processing the recording on Twitch. So if you have any questions, please stay on the Discord channel. I will be there in 1 minute.